Robert McCall, Denzel Washington has struggled to reconcile the awful things he's committed in the past since putting up his life as a state-sponsored assassin, and finds bizarre consolation in administering justice on behalf of the oppressed. Lorenzo Vitale, Bruno Bilotta, a Mafia boss in Sicily, comes in his vineyard with his grandson and discovers a slew of dead victims lying around. He enters alone and discovers 3 of his guys seated with a pistol to Robert McCall's, Denzel Washington, head. When Vitale asks McCall what he's doing there, he replies he's there for something they took that wasn't theirs. McCall gives them 9 seconds to stand down before killing the 3 thugs and leaving Vitale limping away. He pulls out a firearm and shoots Vitale in the head. The grandson notices McCall as he walks away with a bag, and McCall urges him to stay in the car. The youngster shoots McCall in the leg and flees. McCall drives far enough till he passes out. He is discovered by an officer, Gio Bonucci, Eugenio Mastrandrea, who brings him to his town's doctor, Enzo Arisio, Remo Girone. Enzo instructs Gio to inform anybody who inquires that McCall has died. After a couple of weeks, McCall awakens to find himself in the small town of Altamont. He befriends Enzo, who gives him an accommodation to stay, and he befriends Gio and his daughter Gabby, di Lanzero. McCall begins visiting the neighborhood cafe and meets one of the waitresses, Amina, Gaia Scodolaro. McCall admits he's not certain if he's a good or evil man when Enzo asks. He realizes his new buddies are under the authority of local mafia leaders after finding himself strangely at home in southern Italy. As events spiral out of control, McCall understands what he must do: become his friend's defender by taking on the mob. He is plagued by thoughts of his late companion Susan Plummer, Melissa Leo, and he recalls killing the men one by one at the vineyard. Afterwards, McCall phones the CIA and meets with Emma Collins, Dakota Fanning. He tells her about what he discovered at the vineyard in Sicily and advises she look into it. Collins goes with her partner Frank Conroy, David Denman and a crew to discover €11 million and a large stockpile of drugs. She subsequently finds McCall in Altamont and begins speaking with him about what they discovered at the vineyard. A criminal named Marco Quaranta, Andrea Dodero, is antagonizing a fish vendor named Angelo Daniele Perone in Altamont over not giving him what he wants, then demands it the next time he comes up. Marco and his brother Vincent, Andrea Scarderzio, are the leaders of the Camorra, a mafia organization that terrorizes Altamont. Marco pays Vincent a visit when he is dealing with a couple who refuse to hand up their building so Vincent may establish a hotel. He replies by throwing and hanging the wife's wheelchair-bound father from a window, then leaving his corpse for the other neighbors to view as a warning. Joe receives a phone call informing him that Gabby has left school early, and when he inquires with her teacher, she responds that one of his officers has taken her. Joe returns home to discover Gabby and his wife Chiara, Sonia Amar, being held prisoner by Marco and his thugs, who then threaten Joe to get out of their way. McCall witnesses people fleeing at night as they hear a bell ring. Angelo's store has been set on fire, and he and his wife can only stand back and watch everything burn. McCall watches Marco and his thugs sitting back and watching proceedings, and he knows exactly who to pursue. Collins witnesses a news story on a terrorist incident in Rome, which is suspected to have been carried out by Syrian terrorists. According to what she has learned from McCall, she does not believe this was the work of Syrians, despite the fact that their medications were discovered at the vineyard. She tells Conroy that she feels this is part of a larger scheme. Indeed, Vincent and Marco discuss their intentions to take over the entire coast with their own enterprises, and the terrorist strike is part of the plot. Collins is also trapped near an explosion in the city while attempting to get close to her car, but she is alive and in the hospital. In an effort to persuade Joe to buy boats from Somalis, Marco visits to a restaurant where he is eating dinner with his family. Marco then observes McCall gazing at him and approaches him. McCall makes it plain to him what will happen if he continues to threaten the family, so he takes Marco's wrist and compresses a nerve in his hand, causing him pain until he gets his thugs out of the restaurant. Outside, Marco plots to revenge, but one of his goons is run over by a vehicle, which has already killed the driver, another goon by McCall. Before attacking Marco, he murders the final goon, severing his arm and forcing him to stab himself to death. Following the killing of his brother, Vincent is visited by Chief Barella, Adolfo Margota, who looks to be in cahoots with the Camorra. When Barella makes threats, Vincent stabs his hand and then has his goon chop off Barella's hand before bringing him to the hospital to have it reattached. Vincent then intends to exact vengeance. Vincent and his thugs travel to Altamont and attack Joe, shooting a gun near his ear and threatening to kill him and his family until the killer of his brother appears. McCall appears and instructs Vincent to grab him and leave everyone else alone. Enzo shoots his own weapon before Vincent can murder McCall. The locals then take out their phones and film the crooks, causing them to run before the cops come. Vincent returns to his stronghold and begins making arrangements for the next day's attack on Altamont. Unfortunately for them, McCall has discovered them first and is picking him off. When one of his thugs' blood drops on him from the ceiling before the body crashes through the glass, Vincent awakens. Vincent tries to flee but is knocked out by McCall. When he awakens, he discovers that McCall has administered a deadly dose of the medicines discovered at the vineyard, giving him only a few minutes until his heart stops beating. Vincent tries to run into the street while McCall walks slowly behind him, and he is hit by a vehicle. The criminal boss falls a bit further before succumbing to his injuries. McCall subsequently pays a visit to Collins in the hospital. He explains to her that the actual reason he traveled to Sicily was to recover pension money stolen by thieves from someone he knew. He abandons her with the bag of cash. Collins travels to Boston, where the individual McCall mentioned resides. He and his wife are overcome with emotion and gratitude after learning that their money has been retrieved. Collins returns to work and receives a tiny black book from McCall detailing all of his personal gatherings, along with a message stating, "Your mother would be so proud of you." Collins then examines a picture on her desk, which reveals that she is Susan's daughter. McCall remains in Altamont and joins them in celebrating their football team's success.